Hey, welcome to the shop. What we're talking about today is what will take you from being able to kind of stick things together to really laying down a bead that you're gonna be proud of. What we're talking about is how to read the puddle and take the clues that it's giving you and adjust in real time. Watching that weld pool behind your rod is what's gonna give you those subtle clues. So we're gonna look at what it looks like when it's going right and when it's going wrong and how to correct those things. The first thing you need to understand is looking at the weld pool is gonna be different with different electrodes. And so you have 7018, which is my favorite rod to run, and you run this here, you can see that there's a well-defined weld pool and the slag really follows right behind it. So it's fairly easy to make out. However, when you're running other rods like a 6013, it's much more difficult because that slag will sit right up over the molten metal, so it's a little bit harder to distinguish. 6011 or 6010, you're going to be able to see it, it freezes right away, but you do have a little trailing edge of red metal under that thin slag that can be confusing. But we'll focus on 7018 here today. The next thing that's important, and it may seem obvious, is where you put your head to look. Right? Because you need to have a good perspective to be able to judge what's happening with the weld pool while still being able to track the weld seam in front of you. Now, a lot of people might want to watch from the front like this so you can see where you're going, and you can see where you're going really well, but then it's hard to see that weld pool. Now, watching from behind, you can see the puddle. However, it's difficult to see where you're tracking on the plate and difficult to really gain a perspective of what's happening with the puddle. So I like to watch from a right around 45-degree angle coming off the back edge of the weld pool like this. And I think that gives me a good view of the weld pool, some nice perspective, and I'm also able to see the weld seam tracking in front in my peripheral vision to make sure I'm on track. You may find that a different angle works well for you, and that's just fine, but play around with it and find what gives you the view that you need. Now, obviously, in a lot of situations, you're not able to line up as well as we are here working on the bench today, because you might be welding overhead or vertical or in different awkward positions where it's hard to see. But just take a second to think about, okay, what am I going to be looking at, and will I be able to see the puddle to get the clues that it's giving me? Now, right here is how the weld puddle should look as you're running along. You can see it's even between both sides. It's filling in completely as I weld along and giving me something really nice, and I'm happy with the result that I got here. But several things can go wrong. The first thing that can go wrong is biasing one plate. Now, this can come from both your rod